What do you get when you combine cunning, courage, and meticulous planning? You get a heist that would leave you fascinated. In 2006, a group of men pulled off one of the most audacious heists in London's history, stealing millions of pounds worth of valuables from a secure vault in the heart of the city. But how did they do it? How did they manage to evade the authorities and pull off the perfect crime? Join us as we delve into the story of how a group of men executed London's very own Ocean's 11 robberies. In November 2007, Terry Ellis was contacted by a close friend who mentioned potential job opportunities in Europe and England. The friend hinted at the potential for a large payout and arranged to meet with Terry and Hamster Leaf. During the meeting, the friend revealed that he was working with a group of wealthy bankers who required Terry's assistance in retrieving 120 motherboards from a data facility within the next month. The friend mentioned a previous successful job in Chicago where data had been stolen from a similar facility. Deep in the heart of London lies a data center like no other, a level 3 fortress with security measures to make even the most hardened thief shudder. But Terry Ellis was no ordinary thief. He had a job to do, and he was going to do it, no matter the cost. The mission was clear: retrieve the biometric cards needed to access a hidden treasure. And the target? Verizon, a building with more layers of security than Terry had ever seen before. From perimeter fences to overlapping cameras, bulletproof glass, and biometric hand scanners. It seemed like an impossible feat. But Terry had a secret weapon, a keen eye for detail and a meticulous plan. Terry knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed a team. But even with a team, the odds seemed insurmountable. Panic buttons, outside security monitoring, and 8 layers of security. It was enough to make even the bravest soul think twice. No guns, no ramming, and the police stations nearby only added to the challenge. Terry asked the question that was on everyone's mind: why bother? But the answer was simple. The motherboards were too important to ignore, and the payout was too good to pass up. They had a British telecom van parked nearby, which gave them a view of the area. So they strategically moved the van around and parked it in different locations to get a better vantage point. Could this be the key to cracking the seemingly impregnable fortress? Terry's van had a hole in its side, giving him a view of the entrance. He meticulously observed the number of security guards working during the day and night, as well as the expected number of people inside. Despite being deemed impossible by the underworld, Terry was determined to succeed. After weeks of planning, he executed the heist on a Wednesday evening with 16 people present. He didn't want to admit defeat, but having already accepted payment for the equipment, he confidently said, "Yes, I could do it." He used to drive up to Terraced Ham and Terraced Hampstead. There was a guy on the roof, and the entire road was covered with billboards, saying, "Stand back, you can't go through." Terry asked the officer what was going on, and he replied that the guy on the roof was attempting suicide. That's when it hit him. The only way he could get to this door was to dress up as a police officer and convince them to let him through. To execute the plan, he decided to go as a fast response robbery team. He ordered police uniforms in a police van with blue lights and the word police on the side. He also hired 5 technicians to take all the motherboards out and run the job. In addition, he even got an Alsatian dog and a dog handler's uniform. Picture this. It's the size of the Arsenal football stadium. Massive. Every hour, the security companies patrol the building, checking every nook and cranny. But if they miss their rounds, the alarm goes off and all hell breaks loose. That's when Terry decided to make his move. He had 1 hour from 9 to 10 o'clock to retrieve the balls. The adrenaline was kicking in. The taste of success was almost tangible. Terry was in front of a police van with blue lights flashing and a police car following behind. Just as Terry approached the traffic lights, a police car pulled up beside him, sirens blaring. The tension was palpable, and one of the technicians in the back of the van asked what was going on. Terry's calm voice came over the radio. "It's okay, just calm down." And just like that, they were off again. As Terry rushed to the entrance, they knew they had to act fast. They banged on the door and announced there was someone on the roof, and that they needed to check the building with their dogs. After a bit of hesitation, the security team buzzed them in. Terry arrived in a dog handler's uniform with 5 police officers and 5 carriers. 5 cameras were set up across the road, and he knocked on the door. They used proper radios and convinced all security staff and even the general public that they were real police officers. With a biometric card in hand, Terry led the way through access points, letting in the rest of the team. The turnstile was a crucial point, but Terry knew how to get through undetected. He told them that he would cuff every single one of them until they found out who they were. At first, they thought it was a joke, but then they stood up and Terry cuffed them all. Then he went to the security guard at reception and called down the other guards from the other levels. There was also 2 guards on the top floor, but Terry took care of them. He ended up cuffing about 16 people, including security guards, technicians, and cleaners. Terry put them all on the stairwell while he went to get the other guys. Before they could proceed, he had to find the circuit breaker room to turn off the CCTV cameras on that floor where the independent security system operators were monitoring that one room. These operators were independent of Verizon. So, Terry found the circuit breaker room and he instructed his colleague to take the cameras offline. Suddenly, the phone rang at the reception where he was stationed, and a person identifying themselves as Verizon security asked what was happening since all the cameras had gone down. He replied that they were experiencing a surge in the mainframe computer system and that their technicians were working on it. He assured the caller that the system would be operational again in 25 to 45 minutes, and that there was nothing to worry about. This was the only time during the job that he felt uneasy. They had planned for every other scenario, but they couldn't account for the possibility that someone might have alerted the authorities. Their aim was to take 120 motherboards without hurting anyone, using no violence and getting out of the building before 10 o'clock when the alarms would go off. The guys were as cool as ice, staying in the building for an hour with everything going on. He had known these guys forever, and they were the best people he had ever worked with. Terry went into all the rooms where the motherboards were, and on camera their technicians were taking the motherboards, putting them in bags and placing them in the hallway. After 40 minutes, Terry had 20 bags filled with 120 motherboards. As soon as the last bag was out, he yelled and said, "Right, listen. We have about 3 minutes to get out of here because once it hits 10 o'clock, we're done." Terry and the rest of the team quickly went upstairs and left the building. The other guys grabbed 2 bags each, while Terry had 3. He had to take Nick with him because Nick had to look after his dog, which was a big animal and kept barking and pulling everywhere. Nick was on the stairway with the other people, while Terry came down with all the bags. The fire technicians put their 2 bags in and crossed the road to get into their car and leave. Everyone had been paid for their work. Then Terry put all the bags in and he called his guy with the dog to come and go. He said goodbye and then searched the building to ensure there was no one inside. Then he came back and left at exactly 10 o'clock. 6 minutes past 10, the old billboard was left behind. And now, it didn't really end. Terry drove out of the building and headed towards Kennedystown. As he got level with the police station, all hell broke loose as the police came out in front of them. However, instead of arresting them, they just drove by, headed towards Verizon. Terry froze, thinking they were coming for them, but he kept driving and calmed his guide down, who was panicking with all the motherboards in the car. The police car followed them for a while, but eventually turned off, and he continued driving up to Hampstead where he pulled over and let his guide out with the dog. Then he went to return the dog to its owner before meeting up with the rest of the group at Kenwood, where they were supposed to meet. He parked the van near a zip car and went to meet his fixer. They had a discussion and he transferred all their money into some untraceable accounts he had set up. Finally, he called his guy to come over. That was the end of it. Verizon, the penny and the chips, and all the data vanished, never to be seen again. The news that night reported that there had been a robbery in King's Cross, and they called it an Ocean's 11-style robbery. They mentioned dogs and everything else. No money was ever recovered to this day. Only 2 of them have ever been arrested. Unfortunately, Terry was caught a year later. One of their associates got caught in a separate incident and had a police uniform on him. The police did a known associate's check and unfortunately they found Terry's phone on him. He and his crew had shot some security guards, which was completely unrelated to him and his work. However, the security guards pointed to him as the one who had talked about all these jobs. Next thing he knew, he was being pursued by the Special Squad, the 70-handed Serious Crime and Organized Crime Squad, who were pretty tough. They went through every single door, every contact he had, every buyer, in an attempt to take him down. They searched his family's homes, followed his heavy associates, and even got into a house across the road from his father's home. His father warned him not to come near, and a friend let him know of the police's presence. Fearing for his life, he went on the run and spent 10 months evading the police. One morning, he was in his girlfriend's house in Camden Town when he saw a suspicious-looking man and woman walking past. He sensed that something was not right and quickly gathered his belongings, including a rucksack with 20 to 30 grand, and escaped by running across the balcony and climbing down a fire escape. It was like a tube where one goes down and drops about 15 or 20 feet onto the ground. As he dropped and got up again, he saw them all going into his place. A few weeks later, he spoke to his girlfriend who expressed her surprise at not being warned beforehand. He replied that he could not have warned her since he had to get out of there. If he had warned her, he would have been caught. The funny thing was that he was on the run for a whole year and was living in a canal boat. He has moored up just a long nerve for about 3 months while a team of 70 strong men were looking for him everywhere. They were going through doors all over London, Manchester, Liverpool, and other places looking for him. Meanwhile, he was parked in an absolute Verizon, which was ironic and crazy. Then he stayed in a little cottage in another place where he could go to the gym every day and get really fit. He had a lovely suntan, but the police were always on his case. They were everywhere he went, and they were always 5 minutes behind. There was photo recognition all over London. Then they decided to go to Thailand because a friend of theirs was there, who had invited them over. Tan contacted their friend and sent some money over. However, they realized they needed a passport and contacted someone who could get them one. They arranged to meet at the airport the next day, but the person was not able to deliver the passport on time. They decided to leave anyway and meet their friend at the airport. They got rid of their belongings and bought new ones, packed everything up, and headed out to get some food before catching the train to the airport. While on the phone with a friend in London, a car suddenly mounted the pavement and headed towards the individual. They threw their phone over a nearby wall as they attempted to avoid the car. Another car then arrived and collided with the first, causing the individual to jump up and hit the bonnet. Soon after, a van arrived and a large group of police officers approached. The individual found himself spread eagle on the ground as the officer shouted with elation, saying, "We got him!" Despite the chaos, he felt a sense of calm as they had been on the run for a year, unable to see their children and feeling as though they were merely hiding rather than living. Even after the officers had detained them, the individual attempted to deny their involvement and provide identification. They found themselves standing on the pavement for 25 minutes while the officers put up their pictures. They were then escorted back to London with lights flashing. With that said, thank you for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. And if you found this content helpful, give the video a like. See you in the next video. Till then,